Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's Fateless podcast episode. Joining me from the Fateless team is going to be Uho and Dirk. So we've got Uho kind of working on the community side of things, Dirk working in kind of like the lead design side of things. What's up, fellas? How we doing? And Uho, we'll start with you.
I'm doing pretty well, thanks for asking. And you almost got the name right. It's going to get there eventually, but it's Yuho, but I appreciate
I'm a
the
Midwestern
effort.
American. Like, give me a break. I'm not used to these fancy names.
You don't know what
Like,
to do with the
Uh,
J, so you're just omitting it. We're like,
Eventually you get there. Maybe like it's good enough, Yuho, Yuho.
I've only known you for 2 years. Give me some slack here, okay? So, what's up, Dirk? How you doing today?
yeah, I'm doing pretty good myself. I'm glad
Very
to be
nice, very nice. The topic we had for this week's discussion here on the podcast was kind of talking about the different platforms involved with the release of Godforge and games in this genre. Trying to cater to audiences on PC, tablet, mobile, console, and how the different kind of platforms work and interacting with each other, and then also trying to make the player base in general fair and happy based on like grinding time. Like some people are like, I want to grind 12 hours a day. And some people are like, hey, I've got a life and I can only play 15 minutes a day. How are you going to cater to me so that I can keep up with everybody? So kind of trying to find the balance and keep up with all these different platforms and all of these different viewpoints from players in terms of a time spent in a game perspective. So Dirk, we'll start with you and we'll dive into kind of like the platforms thing first. I'm sure you play a lot of these games like Watcher and Raid and all that on all sorts of different platforms, right?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I've obviously PC Master Race. That goes without saying. Even though I'd say up until like this last year, when I needed to get a nice laptop because I had to travel to Seattle, I've always had the worst computer. Despite that, still PC Master Race. So yes, typically when I'm playing, especially gacha games, I prefer playing on PC because you can kind of just alt tab it if you're doing other stuff on your PC, which I don't know. For us, like we work on them. I'm sure most people work on the computer too in some capacity. So to have a game that you're just kind of passively farming in the background is really nice to have alt tabbed. Obviously the bigger screen when you're doing like gear cleansing and all that too is helpful. But yeah, I mean, you definitely have to have them mobile because that's probably why everyone gets into this genre in the first place, is because they can kind of, jump on their phone 5 minutes here and there and get some chores done. So
Yeah, I've thought for a few years now, for like 5 years or so, that eventually the future of gaming is going to be fully cross-platform. It's going to be games like Diablo Immortal, where you can play it on your phone, you can play it on your PC, you can grind while you're on the bus for 15 minutes, you can grind on your computer for 3 hours on Discord with your friends, and it's going to be the games that can cater to all of these different platforms and player bases, which, by the way, Godforge is planning to have a PC launcher and cater to mobile and all that, obviously, as well. But Uho, do you have any entrenched viewpoints on the different platforms and kind of how you play and all that?
Yeah, I'm also in the same group, PC Master Race all the way. But I've also played a lot of mobile games, like a lot of them, way too many to count. And one drastic difference I saw that mobile games have this unique skill of catering to those people who at work want to play a game when they are taking a toilet break. Like that's the best way I can describe it. Games like Squad Busters take 5 minutes on the toilet break, then you just get done with the game, then you move on to the next thing. And if you play on PC, you usually expect the player to commit more time, play for a couple hours, start some raid, start some grinding going, and there's like really drastic differences. And when you go for a cross-platform experience, you need to keep both of these in mind. You have to offer something to those who only have the 5 minutes on the break, but you also have to have something for those who have a couple hours or 10 hours, and they really want to invest a lot of time into their accounts and into their experience for the game.
Yeah, I think it's a valid point because you see games that are super successful for Supercell, they really have that locked in. Like Clash Royale. You just log in real quick, play a game for 2 minutes. And Clash of Clans, log in real quick, do a couple raids, farm some resources, and you're good. Games like I come from PC as well. Games like StarCraft, you can't really play that on break. Like you got to really sit down, lock in, dedicate, get ready, and play for 30 minutes. League of Legends kind of bucks the trend, though, because League of Legends, you do have to kind of sit there on your PC and play for 40 minutes. But they did get this massive player base. So what do you think would be maybe the reason for that? in terms of like bucking the trend and how they were able to do it. Is there anything we can glean from that on how they were able to grow such a massive player base?
I think a lot of it comes down to being first and being really good. Like both of these two things combined. Same thing with Dota, really. Dota has been around for over a decade by now, I think, even longer. And they've been growing all the time, very actively. They promote all the time. They have these massive events. So they have a massive player base. They have it at the core of the game. They also have a really simple gameplay loop, which is really easy to understand. And I think that's a key element to any successful rapid growth for any game. You have to have some simplicity in the game so you can attract a large player base, because not everybody wants to learn and study the game and get really tricky with it. Like it might be way too much for them. So you have to have this simplicity in the background, but also something that you can spend time into learning and accumulating resources, accumulating gear, accumulating knowledge. So that all comes into play in Dota and League, where it's really easy to learn. You play it for 10 hours, you kind of get what's going on, but then you sunk in 1,000 more hours and realize you haven't really learned anything yet, and there's still so much room to grow.
It is surprising that games like League have been able to go mobile. I know they have like a Wild Rift, and then there's been other like League clones that have been able to pull off that formula mobile. And the games, while a little bit quicker and streamlined for mobile, still can last longer than you'd expect, especially for games where you you get punished for leaving early. But I think part of it is changing that too. Like I know you mentioned, and I do agree with this, that a lot of mobile games are like meant for being played while you're sitting on the toilet. In like, a short little time frame, you get your fun, you move on, you go about your day, you don't think about it until maybe you go home. You play a little bit before bed or something. But I've noticed, and I guess I'm luckily that I'm somewhat removed from this, but like people, or at least late now, but a lot of people still have to commute via public transportation, like you work a job in the city. And I noticed that when I was in Korea last year, we're taking the train around Seoul, and every single person had their head down, looking at their phone. And I'd say a good chunk of them, both male and female, were playing games on their phone. Like I'd say majority of the train, which I mean that's its own topic and whether that's good or not, because
Did you see like a popular game that was there in Korea? Or
yeah, it was. I think I was trying to peek around and like, what's over here playing these days? Like anything I know. And everybody had something different on the games, but they all had something that, I mean, all the games look cool. There's a few people like, what is this guy playing? Yeah, definitely some cool stuff. But there was no like one big one. Now I will say the one big PC game in Korea that everyone's playing was League. So I did expect to see Wild Rift on the phone. Surprisingly, I mean, I didn't really. Not that I was walking around checking everyone's phone. So I don't know. It's just anecdotal, small sample size. But I will say that like I do think there's a bigger market now for games that you could play mobile in longer stints than like 5 to 15 minute spurts of playing this.
I actually did really get into the mobile version of League of Legends for a while, and I was grinding it. What I found though was trying to play on a phone like this for like 5-hour sessions killed my hands. My hands hurt so bad. So I really always leaned into preferring a game like a Raid. I can kind of play a little bit, set it down, and watch TV or whatever while it's going, and I don't have to sit here like this for 6 hours. So if I'm gonna grind like Diablo Immortal or whatever, I really preferred being on the PC with like a controller or a mouse and keyboard or something. Did you guys experience that?
Yeah, I mean, there's no way you could sit or like a game like Wuthering Waves or like Genshin. I don't know how people play the exclusively mobile because yeah, for the same reason you're sitting there like, I mean, even on a PC, if you're playing like long sessions of something, especially if you're in a first person shooter where you're holding down the control, the crouch or whatever, you start getting this like claw hand, and and that's like on a nice ergonomic like keyboard and like desk setup. So yeah, on your phone, no way, you're gonna get wrecked. But yeah, I don't know, like I think games like that are definitely meant for PC. Although I've seen they're starting to make these like attachments for phones now that essentially give you like almost like Nintendo Switch style controllers, so you can play mobile games with a more comfortable setup.
Yeah, the Razer Kishi. Yeah, I actually bought that for Diablo Immortal. It like it clips into your phone and it basically
Yeah.
turns your phone into like a PlayStation controller.
Yeah, it looks cool. I
Yeah.
haven't tried it, so I don't know how viable it is, but
It's
in
definitely
theory,
nice. Yeah, like,
like
it's worth it. If you're gonna grind a game like Diablo
yeah,
Immortal
no, like
or
yeah, Devil War, great example because that's something you could easily play 12 hours in a sitting if you had nothing else. Like oh cool, nothing going on today. Bam, I'm grinding this today. Yeah, 12 hours on your phone, like trying to. I know I couldn't even imagine trying to play serious like that. Like, but yeah. I mean, you get like nice little controllers going on there. You could definitely be
yeah,
world
I
first.
I
Like,
liked it. It was a little bit of a pain to constantly carry that around with you, but if you're just at home for a while, it was definitely nice. What do you think, Uho?
One thing I've noticed is that Steam Decks are getting really popular and they are everywhere. Like everybody's hanging out with their Steam Decks in the local parks and cafeterias, and they are really getting into the mainstream market. So I think it's slowly moving away from the standard mobile, which is, let's face it, really awkward and not very ergonomic to use. And there will be a lot of these like cross cross between a mobile and PC, which is also portable, but it's closer to a PC than a phone, I think, which really caters to that both audiences of those mobile gamers and the PC gamers who want the luxury of having a bigger screen, comfortable handholds, more accessibility on the device, but also having it on the go and not really having to worry about your battery life so much and your fingers getting cramped and getting all kinds of carpal tunnel syndrome and what have you.
It's funny
yeah,
because it might also depend a little bit on what you grew up on. I don't know if anybody else can speak to this, but I know for me, I grew up on StarCraft, so I can play StarCraft for 10 hours and my hands don't hurt. If I play something like Overwatch for 30 minutes, my hands hurt. Like, so it's just like I'm used to like the 300 APM, whatever muscles the StarCraft is working, I'm used to that. But on Overwatch, it's like holding down WASD kills my hands. It's like a different motion or something.
Yeah, for sure. I can relate. I've been playing a lot of Dota recently, and my fingers and my muscle aren't really accustomed to what I need to do. It's a lot of button smashing. It's a lot of repetitive functions where, for example, in Raid or in old school RuneScape, it's usually a lot of more mouse movements and it's a lot more reactionary. Like you have to adapt to what's going on instead of just smashing that one button repeatedly. So I definitely get that. I think it's a lot of, there's a generational difference there. Like kids nowadays, they get their first iPhone 15s at the age of 10. They don't really have a PC at home, so they get their first introduction into gaming on their phone and they adapt to it. They don't really have an issue with it. If you are a bit older, then maybe it's usually PC or something that you can really sit down on and have a comfortable chair, comfortable position for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead, Dirk. You look like you want to say
I've
something?
definitely appreciated the mobile aspect of like the phones and then like the Nintendo Switch. Well, I don't have a Steam Deck, but I do have a Switch. And like this that like the Switch has been I guess Nintendo in general has been really good at pushing for this technology, even though the tech is abysmally bad. But at least with like the original Wii U and now the Switch, like that whole idea of like, yeah, it's a console that you play on your TV, but you can take it to go. Like that is really cool. And it's been nice, like once you have like a kid, especially like with a baby, and there's a lot of time you gotta spend just like watching them sleep. And like being able to like I played a crap ton of Hades while my son was sleeping. And just being able to play it on the Switch to go. And then, oh, cool, I want to play on the big screen. He's up, I got the time. Boom, right in there. And like yeah, I think something like the thing with the Steam Deck probably allows that, but with just way better performance. And I think that is definitely going to be a big part of the future, just as people are. You're kind of like always connected now, to the internet, like no matter where you go, and being able to take a higher performance device, like that's made for gaming rather than your phone, I think is going to be an avenue that's worth I guess looking into, because I think stuff like that has been overlooked. And a lot of people kind of overlook PC gaming because you were so locked in. But now that you aren't locked in like you used to be with a PC and you can't take it to go, um, I would certainly not. I would certainly any mobile game I was going to look to release, I would also almost make it mandatory you have to release on PC.
Yeah. We're gonna be trying to have a PC client for sure to try and have that as an option. One topic we did want to get to today as well was, and I know Dirk, you kind of work on the lead design side of things, is how to strike a balance, if it's even possible, on trying to successfully cater to both sides of the spectrum in terms of player base, where you have people that they want to feel rewarded, they want to feel like they can keep up when maybe they only have 15, 20 minutes a day to dive in and get their dailies done and feel like their account is still progressing. But then you also have the tryhards that are like, hey, if I want to play 10 hours a day because I'm on vacation or something, I want to feel rewarded for that. I don't want to feel like after 30 minutes everything's worthless. And I know Diablo Immortal, when I was playing that, they have like an XP cap. So it's like you got tons of XP for the first like 30 minutes you were playing, and then you slowly got diminishing returns. And so it's like, is that a good way to do it? But then people feel like, well, now I'm punished if I grind. So it's like, it's almost tough to do. Dirk, do you have any kind of thoughts on what we could do at Godforge to try to?
It's tough because we've always joked that, especially with a lot of gacha games, that your ultimate goal with these games is to get to the point in your account where you no longer have to play. You're like, all right, got my spider runs down to like 14 seconds. I can get all my crap. I can spend all my energy in like 3 minutes and I'm done playing for the day. And like the feeling of like when you can log into like a game like Raid or whatever and be done in like 20 minutes and then not have to look at it again. It's almost like, wow, I've worked so hard to not have to play this game anymore. And it feels backwards, but it is very satisfying when you get to that point. So it is something kind of to aim for. You want to be respectful of time. There's nothing worse than when you feel like you're forced to play a game, especially games like they have dailies. Because dailies, to me, a daily is just like chores you have to do. And if your chores are taking you like more time in the game than your real life chores are taking, that's obviously it's going to cause time management issues for people. So you want to try to avoid that and keep your requirements for playing down as low as you can. Well, I still think like, I mean, obviously games are fun. And when you want to, sometimes you want to just keep going just for the fun of it. You don't care about getting more stuff. You don't care about like, oh, you know, is my account progressing right now? You're just going, oh man, I'm loving this game. It's firing all sorts of dopamine. I just want to keep more and more and more and more. So I think having a game mode that is fun and allows you to keep going, that maybe doesn't necessarily reward you with progression, but just gives you like the biggest hits of like, I don't know, just satisfaction of playing. Like, wow, that was just fun. I think something like that is really important. That's why we've talked about having a mode that will hopefully go to satisfy that. Where like, oh, you're out of energy for the day. You've done your chores. Nothing else you can really do. Well, there'll be something you can do all day. If Godforge is your jam, like you'll have a way to play it all day and love it. So that, to me, that's at least very important.
Go ahead, Hugo.
I'm not pretty similar about that. I would say that you need to separate the grind and you need to separate the challenge and the actual end game content and the fun things you want to be doing. So for example, in Raid, if I want to burn all my energy to get some silver, if I want to do all my arena tokens to get more arena medals, let me do that in 20 minutes. That's fine. But then I want the other side of the coin, which is a challenge, which is really difficult, which takes me a lot of time, which takes me a lot of efforts, but doesn't necessarily require any energy, any resources. So for example, the newest addition of endgame content, Chimera, it can take me a lot of time to find the team that actually works. I might require some luck to get the run going. I might fine-tune it 5, 6, 7 times to get there. But that's where I want to be using my time. I want to be rewarded for my efforts in the sense that I beat something that was difficult, not something that took a lot of time to get to.
For the viewers that aren't familiar with Chimera, because it's so new, what is like the 30-second summary of what they introduced?
So it's the latest clan boss for the game, which basically transforms between 4 different forms. And you have to have your own little strategy for each form. And you have this goal of beating not only a certain damage score, but you also have these trials for doing certain things during the fight. So for example, you have to land a certain amount of poisons. So that takes consideration on the team. I need to consider which sets do I want to take. Can I even take the sets without sacrificing too much stats? Should I consider switching this champion to this to get another trial done? And those trials are also rewarding. So that's where I like to spend my time doing the end game content that takes a lot of theory crafting, takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of failure as well. So I don't mind failing if I see a path to progress and path to victory in the end. So that's like my jam. Like I want to tackle the hard strategic gameplay instead of doing the mindless grind over and over and over.
It's a really good point, actually. You brought up the theory crafting. that is another way to essentially offer people, I don't want to say playable content, but like content or at least something to do in your game outside of playing. So let's say your chores are done for the day, spend all your energy. You don't really maybe have time to play it, but you still have lots of things to think about, like theory crafting, like you're saying, like, oh man, I got stuck in that one thing. And even though maybe you're not playing God Forge rest of the day, if you could be sitting there thinking about, well, what if I try these characters and I give them this gear set and maybe this imprint? Oh, hold on. I might really make a cool build. And then that right there, I mean, you could spend hours maybe just like theory crafting, sort of just in your head, kind of playing them. You do want to play it, you got something else to work towards. And like, yeah, I guess that's another really important thing is just giving people to think about in your games outside of playing it. That's like, I don't know, just compelling.
And talking about the Chimera content, is that something players would like if it was like in the game on launch? Like what if a clan boss type setting had seasons? Like hey, your clan boss team for this month, you're gonna get bonus points for placing poisons, or you're gonna get bonus points for placing burns. So people are like constantly rewarded for theory crafting new teams and keeping it fresh. Or do you think people prefer, I want to work towards a clan boss team, and then when that's done, I'm done, and I just want to run that clan boss team for 3 years? Do you think players would like the seasons or not, or should there be two separate bosses? How do you think that would kind of work, Dirk?
Yeah, I mean, it is fun. Like when you pull a new hero that allows you to try a new strategy in clan boss. Like, I mean, the first time you get a man eater, obviously that's a big day for you. And there's a lot of other heroes that, besides unkillable, they enable new strategies. Um, Clan boss is like a different beast though, in the sense that like the amount of time you have to put into like making your team, because you gotta go into like the the nice I guess like clan boss, tool to try to speed tune and everything, then actually like moving your gear around all your gear. Like it's a lot of effort to get that team set up. So usually once you get it set up, you don't want to mess with it for a while, because last thing you want to have to do is like re-go into it and set everything up again. Especially because sometimes you mess something up. You're like, I thought this was working before. What am I doing wrong? And you realize there was like a decimal in your speed that you can't even see that's changed now. So it's little things like that. It is nice to be able to kind of lock it in, but yeah, I mean, it is something at least fun, like to have that meta shake up a bit. And I think Raid's done an okay job at that. Where the meta for clan boss, I mean, meta isn't like, it's not competitive too much, in sense that you're just trying to get the best rewards you can. But it started off with like the man of your teams, and then it's like, oh, that's yesterday's. Now it's all about big shields and all that. So it is fun to like have a new hero. You're like, oh, cool. Now I can get this guy to unlock this team. So you do definitely want to have heroes that'll enable the new strategies that get better and better and better and kind of keep it fresh for you. But I don't think you don't want to have that too often, because I mean, how often would you want to change your clan boss team? I guess, like, imagine if there was like a weekly reset on this with like maybe like rules that you change from week to week that'll make different heroes more effective or different strategies more effective, and you had to re-speed tune nonstop. It would be very demanding, I think.
Well, but that's a separate discussion. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Like, do we want these like unkillable, tunable teams that are perfect down to the decimal, and then they just work all the time? Because Raid's address for that was adding in the Hydra, where there's certain mechanics where you can't really speed tune it because it's gonna throw it off in certain ways. And I know Crouching Grandpa, you've been streaming Raid recently. Congrats on diving in, and you're welcome to plug your content. It's Crouching Grandpa on YouTube, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct.
Great. Okay, cool. So, and I know since you've been streaming Raid now, do you have a pulse of like what players would like on that front in terms of kind of like the two different coins Dirk was talking about?
I do think people enjoy the theory crafting, and I do agree they want to reach this end goal of not having to change it all the time. But I think there's also another good option. Let's take Rage Clampos, for example. What if instead of seasons, the seasons would come as optional additions to the difficulty? Like you could add on a layer of, okay, now the boss does acid damage all the time, or now it's acid and fire and frost. Now the boss is faster. Now the boss does more damage. And each difficulty is optional. You can add them on layer by layer by layer. And that those layers would also give you more rewards or maybe better chance at better rewards. So you don't have to partake on that new season, but if you want to, you have the option and you also get rewarded for it. But you don't lose your initial team, you don't lose the initial hard work you put into that team to get it to work. And by shifting the seasons a little, shifting the optional difficulties a little, it would allow those theory crafting players to actually go back, like, let's say every month there's a new addition, new element to the clan boss. They have the option to every month to start thinking about their teams again, maybe try and go for those highest rewards, highest items they can possibly get. But those people who are just happy doing the minimal thing and don't want to change anything, then they can also just keep their teams and not do anything about it.
Yeah, there's a way that I don't, for me personally, I've always kind of enjoyed when it's done this way, is just giving bonuses for partaking, but not being forced. And I think a way that Raid used to do this was like they would do a dragon tournament, and it's like you can run your normal dragon team and get your points, but if you use all rares during this tournament, you're gonna get a bonus, like extra points per run. Do you think that's a good way to do it, Dirk, or does it kind of force people to feel like, well, like now I'm not being rewarded though, because if I just run my normal team, I'm losing.
Yeah,
Or do you think
yeah,
it's a good thing because it rewards it?
well, and yeah, any sort of like reward or bonus you're giving is still, in my mind, I don't know, as someone who tries to play like as efficiently as possible, and I think this is true for a lot of mobile players and like, people who play these games, that if there's any reward left on the table you didn't claim, like you missed out, and like it's gonna like gnaw it's like at your soul. So you just anything that has any sort of bonus reward, in my mind, is mandatory. You must do it, and it just adds to your daily and weekly chores. And like again, you don't want those getting out of control. Um, but I do think the way that at least in my opinion, that feels the best is like leaderboard contests, stuff that were people who are really dedicated can look at the leaderboard and go, you know, I got a shot at this. If what if I can do this like special requirement. Oh, he's doing this kind of damage. And you get to build a special team this way. Like, I think I can do this. And then you want to go for those like high results on a leaderboard and then get a special bonus that way. That's better because then you don't feel as obligated to do it, because it's easy to look at a leaderboard and go like, well, that's not for me. No matter what, I'm not going to get this. So it's not like you just kind of like don't put it in your daily chore list because it's kind of out of reach anyways. That's for whales or whatever. But obviously you don't want it to only be for whales, but it's for people who, I don't know, just they have the resources and dedication to want to change the teams around and you know, really compete to have the best team there.
Do you think that could be mitigated a little bit by the fact that some of these games, like the tournaments and the leaderboards and stuff, it's just too big? Like a player, when they see a leaderboard of 100 people, they're gonna feel like, okay, well, I'm not gonna beat 100.
Yeah, especially a global leaderboard. When you look at like a global leaderboard in the top, like, the top 30 people have all spent like, I don't know, it just feels like $1 million. You're like, how the hell do you have so many points? You're like, what? Who's got like $1 million per week to just drop it? You know, so and it's really easy to just check out of those and not even give 2 seconds of thought on it. But when they do break them down in at least like brackets, so that you'll have like maybe an overall global one that, unless you're like an uber whale, like a Kraken, you're just completely checked out. Or when you get a bracket that has other people about your, like, I don't know, position in the game, and it actually is competitive, where you can look at it and go, oh, I could beat these guys. Like, you know, you're like, you could tell, like, when you see those tournaments, like, usually you'll put in a little effort and just kind of like gauge it. And then you're like, oh crap, I was barely trying. I'm like third place. Like, I got this. Those are the, I think as long as you do a good job breaking it down into like subgroups for everyone to like have a fair shot at competing, then you feel like if you want to, you can do it, but it still doesn't feel mandatory, because it's like, well, as long as you have that, like, not deniability, but the ability to just kind of say like, I wasn't going to win anyways, and you don't feel like you missed out, because it was never an option for me in the first.
What do you guys think would be the proper, like, obviously there's always going to be like a global leaderboard and then a sub leaderboard for like events and tournaments. And a lot of games will default to like 100 or 1,000 for these like sub leaderboards. What do you guys think would be the proper route for Godforge to go if we have like a dungeon running tournament or whatever? Do you think it'd be like 10? Is that too small, but it would feel at least super realistic for a player to win? Or do we go like 50, 100? And Yuho, we'll start with you this time.
I'm not really sure there's a right number. I think there's a right way to reward players who actively take part, and I think that's the bigger focus. If you have 100 players on a leaderboard or 1,000 players, and you reward the top 3 guys, then you instantly cut out like 80% of the people who, because they acknowledge they won't get the top prize, they won't even get to the top 3, so they won't even take part. So maybe it's somewhere between an ELO system where your rank is somewhat based on your previous performance, and somewhere between your account level and your account strength. Like if I have 10 million player power, I shouldn't probably be in the same tournament as the guy with 80 million player power, because that creates that power gap between the placement, that the guy with 80 million player power, they have access to more resources, they have access to more powerful champions, more powerful gear, so they will always take the top spot. So it will always demotivate the little guys from competing. So probably somewhere between, if I had to put a number, I would say about 20 to 25 in terms of each individual leaderboard. Then I don't have anything against the global leaderboard. Like if people want to flex with their achievements and resources and spending and whatever it is, let them. Give them something for the effort, even though it might be really minuscule in comparison to how much they actually need to put in to get to global 1. If you have 1 million active players and you want to be the first of 1 million, then yeah, the reward will never compare to what they actually have to spend. So it's more like a token of appreciation, like, hey, good job.
Yeah, it's a good point, and that's actually something I think is a little bit missing in this genre. Is it's a lot harder to smurf in these kind of games. Smurfing, for those of you that aren't familiar, it's when like a high ranked player creates a new account and then they just beat up on lower ranked players in like in a skill based game like Counter Strike or League of Legends or something. But in a game like Godforge or Rage of the Legends or whatever, it's a little bit harder to smurf like your elo because it would take you months or whatever, or years to kind of get that account to a lower level and then keep it there. So there is opportunities in this genre to have like custom PvP tournaments where it's like there's a player power cap of 5 million and any account over that can't join this tournament. So you would have a way to kind of do fun things for some of the players that are at a more beginning stage on their account. Do you think something like that is realistic, Dirk? Could we have like custom PvP tournaments and then kind of like cap it based on account power or something?
I don't know, like, I wouldn't exclude higher people, but like, yeah, I mean, obviously, like, you were gonna want to subdivide it into brackets that feel very fair, like that. Like you're saying, like even yeah, like what you're saying, you never want to have the guy with 10 million going as 80 million. So it needs to like, we definitely need a very smart system, and I'm confident we'll have this that will at least like break up the tournament brackets so everyone feels like if they want to put in the effort for this week's tournament, whatever, or this event, that you have a fair shot in your bracket. And maybe you don't always want to go for it, but maybe this one is yours. Like I have the right character for this one. I'm doing it. So yeah, we'll definitely have that. But yeah, I wouldn't exclude it. I wouldn't be like, oh, sorry, you got 5.5 million. Like next
No,
week.
I didn't mean exclude anybody. I meant like if Yuho is streaming and he wants to host a custom PvP tournament, he could cap it to 5 million player power for like his tournament. Like, hey, I want to host a tournament for newer players. I'm gonna cap this tournament. I'm gonna send you the
like
link.
community run events. Then yeah,
Yeah.
in that case, I think giving players like the tools to set whatever they want for like a custom event. I think that. I mean, it's something a lot of games don't do, I guess, but any like obviously game that is trying to be an esport that's like having like player run events is mandatory with a lot of like, a robust set of options for that. You don't see it in phone games typically because they're not esports. Although I always kind of felt like they could be. Like I've seen Epic 7 has done a fairly good job at being somewhat of an esport with their live PvP. Obviously like card games like Hearthstone, Magic, they've done a pretty good job at being mobile games, but also esports. It can exist. I think just no one goes for it. And I don't think it's good to try to design a game to be an esport. It seems like a recipe for failure every time. But if I guess if your game has like the legs to sort of like run with it, like, oh hey, this mode is really popular. People love this. Yeah, I think having the tools to enable players to set up their own events like that is really important. And it was definitely important for our studios because like community engagement has been like probably our top like I don't know, like core principle, I guess we shoot for. Anytime we're designing anything in the game, it's always like, how does this engage the community? How does this bring? Because like studio is like, it's founded by the community, so that's always our number one. Like anytime we do anything, how does the community like come together with this?
Yeah, go ahead, Yuo. Did you have any thoughts on that?
As a
Uh,
community manager.
Oh no, as like the custom tournaments,
Yeah. Well, I know as a community manager, he might have
yeah,
pretty good
exactly, yeah.
I mean, even outside of PvP, I think there should be some sort of brackets for each player. Let's say one bracket is, let's call it lightweight. There are people with under 10 million account power. Then there's the intermediate who are 10 million to 20 million. Then there's the open weight category. And you could even give players the option to join the open weight category at any point. So if they want these higher challenges, harder challenges, they want maybe a bit more rewards, let them go at it if they want, but also give them the option to compete at their own level. So every player feels rewarded, they have something to do, they have a way to contribute towards the leaderboard placements, and it's not always the same 5 people who are stomping the leaderboards because they have all the resources in the world, they have more established accounts. So that's where I would go with it. As when it comes to the PvP tournaments, I do think there is room in this genre to have custom-made tournaments because those are really accessible. Like anybody could do them. Anybody could set up any rules they want. They don't necessarily even have to have prizes. Like if you establish a core community of 20 people outside of our Discord, you can play with your friends. You can get some flexing points like, hey, I beat you this week. Let's see next week who's the tough guy. And I think that's really what enriches this genre and enriches the community when they actually get to interact with each other on a very concrete and real level. Because as much as people like to say that Raid is an MMO or it's online player where you interact with people, there's not that much interaction. It's mostly solo play. Like sure, there's clans, but does it actually make a difference on your daily day? Probably not.
I think it's a huge missed opportunity. I think back to when I was a streamer for these games and doing raid all the time. I would have been doing that every day. Like, hey, I'm gonna have a 16-person bracket tournament. Here's the link. Everybody below 5 million account power. I would love to see like what are some of the lesser used champions or what are like some of the beginner players doing in live arena against each other. Like, oh, okay, he picked a lane. Are you gonna bring in Ryan Beast or like it would have just been fun to see how and like give away a keyboard or something to the winner. It would have been a lot of fun to do that kind of community engagement stuff. But I know we're kind of approaching the end time here, so Yuho, you want to kind of plug what you're up to recently and talk about your channel and what content people can see from you upcoming.
So I started streaming when the Hellhades free-to-play challenge started. I've been going at it for 2 weeks, and it's been criminal how much viewership I've gotten. I had like 40 people on my stream. I don't understand why. I'm just cramps. I'm just talking smack and playing games. But if people are enjoying it, then hey, great, come on over, and we eventually get to the 1,000, 2,000 milestones, which are really big deals in the YouTube world because they unlock certain perks for the content creator, and they unlock certain perks in the YouTube algorithm and monetization. So those are actually pretty big milestone for any YouTuber. And the way I've approached it always is that I'm really open and honest. I'm not afraid to show emotion. I'm not afraid to tell what's on my mind. And that's like my approach to life, my approach to gaming. And there's a lot of room for this like genuine human approach. There doesn't always have to be this image or this fake character behind the user tag. Like it's me. I don't fake anything. It's just what I do. And the channel is YouTube at Crouching Grandpa. So come and say hi. I'm always live every day at 6 p.m. UTC, 1 p.m. EST.
Cool. Awesome. We'll try to remember to link that down below. And yeah, great job so far. Keep it up, man. And Dirk, thank you for taking the time to join us for the chat as well. And we will also try to remember to link to the Discord and all that good stuff so you can share your thoughts and anything we talk about here down in the comment section or the Discord server. We all read it constantly, and you can share your input on God Forge development as well. So cheers, guys. Thanks for joining. Fun chat as always. And we will see you soon in the next Fateless podcast episode. Cheers.